Well, first, it's great to see everybody. We had a really good bye week, and we're ready to get back to work. We did practice yesterday in the shells, so helmet and shoulder pads, a little bit different practice than our normal Sunday practice because we didn't play on Saturday. Scout team players of the week from the Utah game are Charles Anderson on defense and Jackson Hildebrand on offense. I'm so excited to go to Houston. This is big. This is a big game for the Big 12. You got two undefeated teams. It's going to be on ESPN. Both teams are playing really, really well on the defensive side of the ball, so it's going to be a great game. For me, y'all know I'm a college and high school football geek. I'm coaching against one of the best coaches. You know, he's got 250-plus wins. He's won at every level he's coached at, from junior college to now at Houston. I'm a big fan of Coach. I love what he's doing. I have some good friends on that staff, and so I think it's going to be a war. It's going to be a great game. Expecting a sold-out crowd, and we're hoping that at least half of that crowd are Red Raiders, and we make a lot of noise and hear a lot of Raider power during that game. So with that, I'll open up with questions.
Coach, how does Houston challenge your team, and how do you avoid a trap game?
Yeah, I think one, they're 4-0, so I don't think we'll be worried about any kind of trap game. They're a really good football team. Defensively, they've done a good job of stopping the run. They're one of the top teams in the country on defense. They've done a good job of creating turnovers on the offensive side of the ball. I think they have one of the best tight ends in the conference, if not in the country. He caught a huge pass, to really let them, they came back. It shows a lot of character of them coming back. They were down 24-10 at Oregon State. He made a big play, but he's a really good football player, high targeted, catches the ball, 6'7". Quarterback is playing really well, and they do some quarterback design runs, but he does a good job extending plays with his feet, and so it's going to be a really good game. They're 4-0 for a reason. Willie Fritz does a good job of not beating himself. His team does a really good job. They're very disciplined, so it's going to be a really good game.
7 Red Raider teams have started 5-0 to start the season in the history. Why do you believe that this team could be the 8th?
Man, we're just trying to – that's what it'll be at the end of the night. We're just trying to go 1-0 this week. And, this is a veteran group. They'll be ready. Coach Martin, who's our director of player development, helps with the safeties, met with the 3 captains this morning, felt they were really dialed in. He meets with them every Monday. And that's Barron and Bryce and J-Rod, and they feel like they're really dialed in. I like the way we practiced yesterday, so I think our guys are going to be focused.
You're always looking for a complete game from this team. How close have you been so far this year?
Yeah, we haven't been close. The one thing that we've talked about a lot, and we've got to do a better job, but we're one of the most penalized teams in the country. And until we get past that, and the penalties, we've talked about it before, the pre-snap penalties is what kills me, because that's directly, everything about us not being disciplined before the ball snapped. Till we get past that, which we're going to, but till we get past that, it's hard to play a complete game.
How's Barron after the open date? How's he feeling?
Yeah, he looked great yesterday. I got a video Friday morning. He was running around throwing with Mike Ramirez, our trainer, and they videoed, of course, him sliding. And so it was good to see that. But he looked good yesterday, felt great. He was full participant in practice. We didn't do we did have a scout period, but our quarterbacks aren't getting touched anyway in a regular practice. But he looked good yesterday. Feels great.
In the past, you talked about self-scouting during open dates. Is there anything you learned doing that this week, and anything you want to improve on going forward?
Yeah, I think we spent one thing we spent all week, and I wish we'd have done it the week before, we spent all week working our silent count and perfecting that. We've got to get better at that. We're going to play in a hostile environment. I'm sure Houston's going to be a loud place, and we've got to go to Arizona State. That's going to be a loud place to play. K-State, it's a great environment, and so that's one thing that we looked at. And then, continuing to take the ball away, continue to punching at the ball and creating turnovers, and then, offensively keep getting better running the football. I think we've got a strong 1-2 punch in Cam and Jacoby, and I think finding the right run, Coach Cochran and Clay McGuire and Garrett, they all really, looked at that of like, what's the best thing we're doing right now, running the football, and building off of that.
Coach, you mentioned the silent count right there, and then after the game, was there anything your guys specifically told you about why there was so many pre-snap penalties? No,
it was just hard to communicate, and then I still think there's a couple that, for us, we motion and change the look so much for defenses. We've got to have a better pace in those kind of environments, so that the offensive line's not sitting in their stance so long.
And then in specifics outside of just that silent count, is there anything y'all are doing? I know you amped up the crowd noise last week. What are y'all doing this week, I guess, to change that?
No, just we'll have the silent count ready if we need it, and I hope they need it too. There's a good chance that the last time we played in Houston, I know it was a bowl game and it was NRG, but when I walked off that bus and I walked the stadium, I felt like I was at Lubbock, Texas, and it was the Raider walk. I had never seen so many Texas Tech fans, on the road, and then I remember, like Sharadrick and Barron and some of those guys like going, man, this is like a home game for us, and so I'm hoping we're showing up for that game too.
With a common opponent of Oregon State, how much are you able to kind of use that to kind of scout Houston, considering they're two different settings, two very kind of different games there?
Yeah, I think it gives us some stuff to look at. I think it's a good game to watch as far as, our players and coaches. They got down in a hurry, and like I said, it shows a lot. They have a really tight team, and when you get down like that and you're able to come back on the road and win that game the way they did, it says a lot about them. They blocked 2 field goals in that game, so we're going to have to do a great job, if we get into a field goal or extra point situation. But it's always Oregon State had to come here. They went to Oregon State. That was a late game. You never know exactly. I tell you, Oregon State, man, I feel for those guys because they've lost 2 games off of special teams, and those are really tough losses.
You made the podcast rounds last week, just kind of let everybody know, hey, don't bother coming for Will Hammond. He's going to be here for a little while.
Yeah.
But that was kind of a conversation coming out, should they start Will or Morton? But for you, how important is it to have Will under that multi-year where you can still go, hey, Barron's still our guy, but we believe this guy is our future, and we can put him in wherever we need to if we have to.
Yeah, it makes a big difference. I watched some games this week that a lot of people wish they had a Will Hammond as their number 2. I promise you Iowa does, in that Indiana game whenever they lost their quarterback. We're really fortunate that we have, the 2 guys that we have, and shoot, when we were at Utah, if Will's helmet would have came off, Mitch would have come in there slinging it around too. We're in a fortunate situation, and I hope we get to dictate that of when these guys go in versus injuries dictating that. But we're fortunate to have that guy right there.
Coach, you were touching on it a little bit earlier, but you're going up against another good defensive line. Platt is a guy that's been coming on strong for them over the last couple of weeks of getting to the quarterback. What are you guys doing to prepare for that line up front?
Yeah, they, the one thing that they do really well is they stop the run, get you in, 3rd and long to where they can really come after and pressure in their pressure situation. I mean, they have two really good defensive tackles. That's to me, the strength of their team is number 5 and number 18. They're both really good football players. And I do think also this is going to be two of the better corners we faced all year long. I mean, their secondary plays well, but the two corners are really good. So, CD and Reggie are going to have to play really well and go up and catch some contested balls. We got to be able to run the football, because the one thing that we don't want to do is get them in a situation where they can go to their third down package and really pressure us.
And my second one is, you talked about Barron already and how he's kind of used the week to recover, but how have some of the other guys used this week just to get recovered and get better? You obviously said coming out of that Utah game and the physical matchup that a lot of guys came out with some bumps and bruises. How do you feel like the team is coming out of that week?
Yeah, that's a good question, because there's a couple guys we're getting back, that Cash Cleveland will be back. He practiced all last week, practiced yesterday. Ellis Davis practiced all last week, and practiced yesterday. And this is probably as healthy as we've been, since going into camp. Guys, it was a good week to have off, of different guys that have been banged up. TC's been banged up a little bit, so he felt good yesterday, and so it was good to have that week off. And even though a lot of those young guys still practiced, the old guys were able to get a little bit of practice in during the week and then run a lot to keep us in shape.
Collier in the middle.
How hard is it to not have some form of package or whatever to get Will in there, just to not necessarily, have him run the football? Because I know that I can't imagine you guys want any Barron Morton run in this game.
You never know, man. You'll have to wait till Saturday. We have been fortunate that we have got a lot of different things that we can do with a lot of different personnel that we haven't had to use yet. That at some point we're going to have to, and that could be one of them.
We were looking at the depth chart, and there's an or next to Stone's name. We were just wondering what a guy has to do besides kick a 58-yarder to win the job.
He's got to do it again, man. He's got to do it again. He's such a great story and such a great Red Raider. I'm really proud of him and what he's doing. And it's going to be really big that he has a big day kicking the ball off, because they've got a really good number 4. They've got a really good returner. He returns kicks and punts, and we want to make sure that he doesn't have the opportunity to do that.
Next one, Joe.
Hey, Coach. Sticking with special teams on the punting side, how big was it for Jack Burgess against Utah, and how have you seen his progression over the last couple of years personally?
Yeah, he's kicking the ball really well. I think he's leaner. He's gotten stronger. That always helps. And you've got to be ready to go when your number's called. Like Will was ready to go, Jack's got to be ready to go, because he didn't have a lot of action the first couple of weeks, and then he came out and has punted the ball really well. He had a great camp, so we felt good that he was going to do a good job for us this year. I'd love, not to get on my soapbox again, but I'd love for them to go ahead and get the 5 for 5 out of the way, and I'll take Jack back for another year.
Hey, since you were talking about Will and said openly that he has a multi-year contract, are you willing to say any other guys that have multi-year deals?
I'll tell you, I'll get that to you, because I don't want to miss somebody or say somebody that is or not, and there's a couple guys that we're working through right now to try to add, but we'll try to get that to you, because I think we have maybe 7 or 8 guys that are on multi-years, and then we have probably another X amount that we're working to add another year to their contract.
Did you said in the summer that you anticipated some guys would be offered multi-year contracts and decline to keep their flexibility. Did that play out that way with any guys?
I think some of it is like how you're playing right now. As crazy as that sounds, like, if a kid's playing really well or if he's not playing really well, did he add value? And so there's a couple guys that are kind of probably mid-October to late October that I think we'll get something signed that will kind of be based on how they're playing, and it's another thing you're kind of rolling the chance of taking with injuries, if you haven't signed a multi-year contract that we're trying to get you signed. If you get hurt, then you kind of lost your value as far as the open market and then, are you going to come back for your injury and stuff like that?
Also, what's Shields' pulse with going back to Houston?
Yeah, it's you got him and you got AJ and then you got Rob Green that coached for Willie at Tulane. The one thing, I kind of push buttons and poke the bear. I did yesterday very loudly say, "Hey, Shields, don't make this about you," which it was kind of a joke, but it was also like the one thing that we hopefully continue to build off of, because this is such an old team and they're vets, just make it about the football. Like, if we're the best version of ourselves, then I feel like we can play with anybody. I watched a lot of football this last weekend, and I felt good about our football team whenever I was watching that football, if we take care of our business. So that was was a little bit like, let's don't make it about Houston. Let's don't make it about, I know we're playing Houston and they're 4-0, but let's make it about how good we can be.
Anybody else? Last call. All right.
All right. Thank y'all very much. Good seeing y'all.
Doing great.
Coach, how has David Bailey grown this year?
Oh gosh, David's doing a great job. Really, in all facets, I think probably since he's been with us, with what we're asking him to do, his technique in the run game. Against Utah in this last ball game, we left him in there in some 12 personnel sets, even when they brought in a big tight end, kind of an offensive lineman disguised as a tight end, and he did some really good things in the run game with tackle tight end double teams and playing different alignments, playing a B-gap technique, playing a head-up forward technique, playing a 5 technique. So I think I've been impressed with his run game defense in the different alignments we're asking him to do. And then just, his pass rush and leadership, work ethic every day, all those things.
You have tied or led turnover margin and allowed less than 300 yards of offense all this year. How has the depth benefited this defense?
Well, we've got some really quality players across the first group, and then I think when our next group comes in, there's not a ton of drop-off. There really isn't. There's certain positions where I would say we have 2 guys that are probably starters at the same position, and we're very blessed in that regard. So when you have a second group that can come in, or a guy that's a backup, quote-unquote, but can come in and play like a starter in terms of alignment, assignment, and execution, that's a huge bonus for us.
4 games this year of allowing 14 points or less. How does Houston challenge this defense?
They do a nice job. They want to run the football, play action, bootlegs off of their run actions. I think they do a really good job of picking and choosing when they want to try to push the ball down the field and trying to do a good job of negating your pass rush ability by the number of people they leave in to protect. They take care of the football. They've got some playmakers on the perimeter, so all those things will be challenges for us in this game.
Coach, there's been a lot of talk about the first 2 levels of your defense, and rightfully so, but how do you feel like the secondary has played so far, specifically against Utah, but the whole season?
I think they played really well. We've got some guys back there that have played a lot of football with a ton of experience, great intellect, and ability to be the quarterbacks of the defense. In particular, I think of the 2 safety positions, our free safety and strong safety positions. They're doing a great job of talking about motion adjustments, what they're going to go to on a certain type of motion, pre-snap awareness in terms of run pass, based on splits, the route concepts they might get, all those types of things. So been really pleased with the safeties in terms of their communication. I think the corners are doing a really good job of playing with great leverage, pad level technique, and just excited to see them to continue to improve as we build through the season.
Kind of talked about Houston's offense earlier, but what about their offensive line? What do you see in that matchup between y'all's defensive front?
I think they've got a quality offensive line. They're a team, again, that they would like to run the football, so we'll have to do a good job of trying to stop the run. And then, again, off of those run actions, just the different ways that they'll try to push the ball down the field off of, play actions, bootlegs, things of that nature.
Coach, Houston has had a different receptions leader in its last 3 games. How do you go about dealing with multiple top options?
They've got some really good guys on the perimeter. Their receivers are quality. The tight end is a really big target and has a great catch radius. So we just got to play really great technique, I think, alignment, get our eyes in the right spot, and do the best job that we can in winning our leverage.
And then Jacob kind of highlighted the turnover circuit y'all run. Could you break that down a little bit for us, what that is?
Yeah, we've got different circuits that we work, and then we'll kind of mix the drills that we incorporate into those, maybe day to day or week to week. We may change something up, but just focusing on fundamentals and techniques, and in a period where we're really trying to emphasize taking the ball away. So just giving our guys opportunities from a technique standpoint to drill intentional reps of getting the ball out or creating some type of way to get a takeaway.
Coach, after coming off your first road test of the season, what's maybe something you learned about this defense that you didn't know about them before that matchup?
I think they've got a really great bond together in terms of how they play and the camaraderie that they have. I don't know if that's something that I learned about them that I didn't know, but I think as you go through adversity and you get deeper into games and you get a chance to play together more often as the season builds, you just get a sense of their confidence in one another, their willingness to play hard and play together and weather the storm, so to speak. I was really proud of how they responded in that ball game.
So you're going back to your old stomping grounds, and McGuire said he was poking fun at you a little bit yesterday at practice. But what has it been like for you mentally preparing to face your old team?
I mean, the good thing for us is we're a process-driven ball club, and I think when you focus on that, it doesn't matter who the opponent is or the situation. We're just trying to do a great job with our game plan today to prepare for the practices that we have Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and give our guys the best chance that they can have to have the numbers at the point of attack, win their one-on-one matchup, do a great job game planning the situations that are going to arise in the ball game. And then I think if we look at it, it's nice to have a bye week. You get a chance to go back and reflect and study yourself a little bit with an extra couple of days to kind of prepare for the next opponent, but also catch your breath and see where you're at. And I think that there's a lot of things that we need to improve on as a defense. So those are the things that we're focused on.
Saying that, there has to be some connection with you and Coach Fritz. I mean, what has he meant to your career, and what have you learned from him?
I've enjoyed every place that I've worked and have learned a lot from every experience that I've had. I think, I would say that I've enjoyed working at this place more than any other institution that I've worked at, although I've been here a brief amount of time. But every place that I've worked, I've enjoyed working with the coaches and the players that I've been privileged to work with. And again, I think you learn from every situation, different ways that people set things up organizationally, structurally, schematically, as you learn from different coaches that you work with. And, my last stop was no exception to that.
Is there one thing in particular you learned from him, though, that you kind of carried with you?
I think he did a great job, and just in terms of organization, attention to detail throughout the program.
Coach, with Ben Roberts and Jacob Rodriguez both having those punch outs there in Utah almost 2 weeks ago now, what is it as far as their technique goes, and what are you coaching them as far as that punch out? Is that just something they know how to do, or is it something that you've taught them how to punch that ball out?
I think I mentioned before, Jacob is the best that I've been around without a doubt from a defensive standpoint. I mean, he had that skill way before I ever got here. You guys have seen that in the past. So, and I think that's one of the drills that we do work, kind of going back to some of the circuit work that we do. That's a drill within that we work from a technique and fundamental standpoint with all of our guys. And then, I think that whenever you have a player that does something really well on your team, I think other guys try to emulate that a little bit, and it heightens their awareness. They see his ability in games in the past maybe to be very intentional about making the tackle, but also taking a shot at the ball as they go to wrap. And those were two huge takeaways in that ball game for sure.
And then to piggyback off of what Emily said, during your bye week, you said you had a lot of time to reflect kind of up until this moment. What did you learn about yourself, and what processes or anything, if anything's going to change moving forward for the rest of the season? What are going to be made on your side?
I think you just go back and look at the things that you maybe have done well, and you look at the things where there's some confusion or a little bit of doubt with a technique or a player, or maybe there's a better way to coach a scheme. So it's more of a holistic kind of overview of trying to go back and self-scout and just see your strengths and weaknesses and the things that as a coach you can do a better job of moving forward.
You're trying to dig some emotional response out of you going back, and it's just very even keel. So where'd you learn that? Have you always just been very, goal oriented, just keep all the emotional aspects aside, or is it something you developed throughout your years of coaching?
I just think that in this business, you can't get too high with the highs or too low with the lows. I try to come into the office every day with a consistent approach where, you know, when I wake up and I come to work, I'm giving my dead level best for the guys that I'm working with and working for. And I think probably early on in my career I had some good role models in that regard. But at the end of the day, you know, this is a challenging, competitive environment that we're in, and you just got to be consistent and plug away at it every day. And that's what we're trying to do, is just be the best version of ourselves that we can be for this tough conference road matchup that we got.
Anything else?
All right. Appreciate y'all.
The fans' favorite player is always the backup quarterback. What do you want Barron to show you on his return on Saturday?
I just want him to get back to playing like he was before he got hurt. I think he was playing efficient. He was making good decisions, playing with a lot of confidence. So I think, which I expect him to. He's been good. He was back out there last night throwing the ball around and looked good, looked confident. So excited to get him back out there.
Why has your offensive line exceeded your expectations this year?
I think those guys are just kind of starting to gel together. They're getting, we had a couple new pieces that you're plugging in, and so I think those guys are getting used to playing together. I think Coach Clay's doing a great job. Just harping on the details. I think that's one group. If you look from week 1, through last week or the Utah game, whenever that was, I think they've made steady improvement. They've taken the challenge and they've gotten better every single week. And so, that's kind of that's the message really for every unit is, what can we do to be better than we were last week and last game? And so I think those guys have really done a good job, and you've seen that on tape.
As you examine the game film from Utah and you've looked at the season so far, which units have shown the biggest growth?
I think you could probably point at some area of each unit, that they've done a great job and have stepped up in a big way. We've done a lot of good things over the first 4 weeks of the season. And then there's also, the bye week. That's what it's great for, is the self-scout. And so going back through and seeing, what areas, Coach calls them red flags, but what are the red flags, for us offensively as a whole unit and within each position group that we need to keep attacking and keep getting better at. So I've been proud of the guys. I think they've competed well. And I think, each position group has done some really good things and has responded to challenges and has gotten better from week 1 to week 4. And so, we want to continue doing the same thing as we move forward.
Jarrett, Ty, and Jeff.
Coach, what kind of weapon and what does he mean to you as a play caller is Jacoby as a receiver? I know he's a good running back, but when he lines up out wide and you get him manned up, what kind of weapon is he for y'all?
Yeah, he's phenomenal in that sense. There's just so many creative things that you can do, and he's just so much different than your typical running back. Your typical running back, you move him out wide, he's basically just a decoy, or he's running a route that doesn't really affect the play at all. Where Jacoby, like that first third down we had at Utah, we moved him out there and it was a design play to get him the football, and so he's just dynamic with the ball in his hands, and he just has a better skill set than your average running back when it comes to catching the football out of the backfield and being able to do some of those things. So it definitely adds a layer of creativity to the offense for sure.
First road test, obviously not for Barron in his career, but what's your evaluation of Barron and Will in their quarterback play at Utah?
Yeah, I think obviously Will came in and I was really proud and happy for him the way that he responded. That's a hard thing, getting thrown in. You're the backup quarterback, and you didn't get as many reps in practice all week. You come off the bench cold, and to respond and play the way that he did was very impressive. I was really proud of him for that. I think our assistant quarterback coach Lindsey Scott does a great job with those guys, getting them ready to play as well. And then I think Barron, I think he played well, he competed well. The 2 interceptions, were they great throwing balls? No, but the defensive guys also made great plays. You know, one was a tip pass off of the back of a guy's helmet, so a little bit of an unfortunate bounce, and then the other one was a one-on-one ball in the end zone where the guy got his head around late and made a phenomenal catch. So it wasn't like he made bad reads on the play or went somewhere where the ball he wasn't supposed to go. Just maybe underthrew him just a touch. So those are easily correctable things. But other than that, I thought he played well and competed really at a high level. And he's just so good as a leader, in those environments, keeping guys positive, and he's got so many reps under his belt that he's good at those kind of things.
What did Barron's recovery week look like? It sounded like what Joey was saying was that even right after the hit, he was still ready to keep playing.
Yeah, he definitely wanted to keep going back out. He definitely wanted to go back out there. I mean, that's just kind of who he is. He's a competitive kid and wants to be out there, wants to be the guy. But he got to kind of take it easy last week, take some mental reps, and just basically focus on recovery all last week. So he got back out there last night and was full go. Cleared all the concussion protocol and all those things. So that was good to get him back out there.
Coach mentioned y'all are using silent count a bit more. How are you guys doing with that so far?
Yeah, it was really really good. I think the bye week was a great time to implement that. Obviously should have had it at Utah. The 7 false starts completely on me. Just not being well prepared enough. So we addressed that issue, and the guys did well last week with it.
Did you guys end up starting to use the silent count a little bit later in the game?
No, I think later in the game as we kind of started scoring, I think the crowd just kind of got taken out of the game a little bit, so we didn't have as many issues.
Speaking of those issues, Coach, how has your offensive line improved in that since the beginning of the season? Because it seems like there have been issues with penalties across this season up to this point, highlighted by the Utah game.
Yeah. I think that's just something that we continue to harp on and continue to focus on, and just being hyper aware of that. I think pre-snap penalties, really up until that Utah game, I think we had 3 on the season through 3 games, which isn't terrible but not great. Those are really completely controllable, and so we want to be able to eliminate that completely. So it's something that we harp on, something that we coach every day, and we're on lookout every play, making sure nobody's flinching, nobody's moving. I think a little bit of it too is just our guys in that Utah game just relaxing, taking a deep breath, and not letting the noise and everything going on affect them too much. So, and I think they kind of settled in towards the end of the game and did a much better job of that.
And nobody scouts your team better than you do, but you've got an opportunity this week. The team that you are playing was coached by one of your partners in Coach Wood. How much are you talking to him about what some of these guys are good at and maybe not so good at to be able to take advantage of?
Yeah, I mean, we talked to him. It's funny just the way college football is nowadays. Though we went through talked to him. I went in his office and talked through the depth chart, and there's I think 3 of the guys on the defense are guys that he coached last year. It's like almost all the guys are new transfers or they're freshmen that are in the 2 deep, and then a completely new defensive coordinator who brought in a new scheme. So, there was a little bit, of carryover and things that he could talk about, but for the most part, it's kind of a completely new defense and a lot of new personnel on that side of the ball at Houston. So, we're doing our kind of normal due diligence like we would any other week when it comes to scouting the opponent.
And then, Coach, talking about that personnel, for maybe not many people know, but they've been a top 25 defense in points allowed and yards allowed, so they've been really consistent this year so far. What are you guys doing throughout the week to kind of prepare for a defense that's been really consistent?
Yeah, they've been very good on the defensive side of the football. Through the 4 games, like you look at the advanced analytics, the expected points added, for the defense, they're 4th in the nation, on a play in, play out basis. So it's a good defense. It's a good unit. It'll be a great challenge for us. But just like Coach McGuire kind of always talks about, it's really about us and it's about our execution and us putting together a good game plan the next couple of days and our guys being, confident in it and going out and being able to play fast on Saturday. So the preparation doesn't really change. It doesn't matter if we're playing the Dallas Cowboys or whoever's on the schedule. We're going to, go through our practice week and go through our preparation the exact same. And so this week's no different. But it will be a great challenge for us.
Anyone else?
Coach McGuire was saying Cash Cleveland and Ellis Davis were full participants in practice. Is there any possibility that we see them this weekend as far as rotations?
those guys are still, you know, this past week, the bye week was kind of their first week getting back into it. So just kind of playing those guys into, into shape through practice. So I think both of them are doing some good things in practice. So we'll kind of see as the week progresses what they look like. But I think the biggest thing for them is kind of getting their legs back underneath them and getting back in shape. I think Cash, we did like a little, developmental scrimmage one of the days, and he went through 8 plays and he was huffing and puffing, so it's he does a great job out there, but it's just different when you haven't played in that long, getting back in shape. And so I think seeing how those guys progress over the next week or two, I think that'll tell us a lot whether they're ready to get in the game.
Have we seen all of your offense yet?
You've seen the base majority of it. There's wrinkles here and there, but for the most part, kind of what we've put on film is kind of who we are and who the base offense is, and then week to week we kind of window dress that stuff and have some wrinkles, depending upon whatever the defense is doing to try to take advantage of that. So hopefully that kind of answers your question. We always got a few tricks up our sleeve.
We good?
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Coach.